The next person I'd like to introduce is a person I always have a hard time because she's changed my life in so many ways, and I think most of the people in this room would say that Sally Fallon Morel changed their life in a very good way. And Sally is, of course, the president of Weston A. Price Foundation. She is the author of Nourishing Traditions Cookbook, which has now sold 500,000 copies. Sally, is that correct? 500,000 copies? Yes? And many of you may not know this, but she was the founder of the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. Weston A. Price members, just like you, put money together to start the fund because we found out it's not enough to know that this food is important. We have to protect the farmers and the producers who are making and growing it. So the Legal Defense Fund was started under the inspired vision of Sally Fallon Morel. Sally has a few words for us this evening. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I think before we do anything else, we need to thank Kathy because these dinners are her inspiration and her hard work. So. Well, you've probably heard this quote. Schopenhauer said, "All truth goes through 3 stages. First, it is ignored, then it is violently opposed, and then it is accepted as self-evident." And raw milk kind of grew steadily from the beginning, well, the founding of a campaign for real milk in 1998, when we set that up, and it just kind of grew. It was under the radar, and it was ignored. The government really didn't even know about it. 2 things happened in 2007 to change that and bring us into the second stage, violent opposition, which, however depressed and discouraged we may be by this violent opposition, we have to always keep in mind that it's a sign of progress. Okay, it's a sign we're making progress. So 2 things happened in 2007. One was we set up the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. And that, there were really 2 things that inspired that. First of all, one of our board members, Valerie Joyner, who is a homeschooler and a member of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, she had said to me several years before, "Sally, I think we need something like this for our farmers. The same thing we have is for the legal defense for homeschoolers." And I just kind of kept this idea in my mind, looking for an attorney who would be willing to set this up for us, and that happened when I met Gary Cox. So 2007, we had our inaugural party out at Jake Zook's farm. And it was not a moment too soon. Oh, and by the way, leading up to that, for about a year leading up to that, at the Weston A. Price Foundation, we started to get calls from farmers who were having legal problems, who were being harassed by government officials. So, and the Weston A. Price Foundation really is not a legal defense association, so our hands were tied with helping them, and that really made me see the necessity of setting up this organization. So, as I say, it was not a moment too soon, because something else happened in 2007. And that was the Centers for Disease Control did a survey to find out how many people drank raw milk. And we didn't learn about this survey until a number of years later. They kept it secret. But they found that slightly over 3% of the population of the United States drinks raw milk. And it was a jaw-dropping moment for the government. They realized that they had a threat to the status quo there. That was in 2007. 3% of the population was 9 million people. And we, as our wildest, most daring estimates, thought maybe there were 1 million people drinking raw milk. I thought that was quite a claim. It turns out there were 9 million. And I would not be surprised if that number were anywhere between 10 and 15 million today. So it's starting to have an economic impact on the dairy industry itself. has put a stop to this, the demise of the small farm. It has actually reversed that trend. It's made it possible to have a prosperous small farm. And that is when, 2007 is when we started to get the harassment, the going after farmers with accusing them of having tainted milk and not showing us the test results, putting out press releases, inflammatory press releases against the small farm when the test results, when they didn't have test results, and then the results would come back negative, but you know, the damage was done to the farmer. And lots of other things like armed raids, it's violent opposition. And we definitely, this definitely means that the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund is an extremely important organization. I'm sure this opposition would be far greater and far more serious if we didn't have the Legal Defense Fund. So it's very important to grow this organization. I have a little assignment for each one of you, and that is within the next month to bring in one more member, and then maybe a few more during the year, because membership is it. So looking forward, I see tremendous growth in the consumption of raw milk. The dairy industry is very afraid of this. I don't see a stop to the harassment in the near future. I think we're in this violent opposition stage. I think one of the tools that is going to be used against us is the insurance tool. Getting to the big insurance companies and having them take away coverage to people doing raw milk. That's why that's a very important thing for us to look to next, is getting some kind of insurance for raw milk producers. I think science is going to help us out. We have new types of testing coming along the pike that are going to make it possible for farmers to test every batch of milk before it goes out the door, and for all types of pathogens, known and unknown. But in the long run, I see a glorious future. I foresee, I predict, I can't say in how many years this is going to be, but I predict that a time will come when raw milk eclipses pasteurized milk, that the truth of raw milk's benefits and safety will become self-evident, and it will just be normal. Of course we drink raw milk. How could we ever have drunk pasteurized milk? So all that will happen with your help, with the help of our wonderful donors, our organizers like Kathy, our attorneys like Elizabeth and Pete, and most of all with your continued loyal support. So thank you very much for being here tonight, and enjoy the program. Thank you.